One of the things that people ask me a lot as a sex therapist, particularly in terms of sex and porn addiction, is why have things changed for me? Why is it that what I used to find arousing, I don't find arousing anymore? Why do I struggle to get an erection now? Why am I not aroused in the same way that I used to? And what's my arousal template? So today in this YouTube video, I wanted to talk about what is your arousal template. In his book, Facing the Shadow, Dr. Patrick Carnes describes the arousal template. He describes it as the total constellation of thoughts, images, behaviors, sounds, smells, sights, fantasies, and objects that arouse us sexually. So in this YouTube video, I want to break that down and help you understand a little bit about your own arousal template. Now, each of us has a unique arousal template, or I guess what you'd call a map in your brain of what you find sexually appealing. Although neuroscientists don't fully understand how or why the various things to which we're attracted appear in our arousal template, it is clear to them that by the time we're 4 to 6 years old, our arousal template is largely in place, even though we're not yet sexual beings. So it's pretty young. Interestingly, the arousal template can also be damaged by very different forms of sexual, emotional, and physical abuse in those early years. Every person has a unique and distinct arousal template. So what turns one person on may not interest others in any way, shape, or form, and vice versa, which is a good thing, really, because it means that no matter what we are, who we are, what we're interested in, somebody's out there that will find us attractive. The question is, where does your arousal template come from? So generally speaking, your arousal template is part genetic, part learned, and part cultural. So the genetic piece, physical health, sexual maturity, fertility, fidelity, even facial symmetry, reproductive age, waist to hip ratio, gender preference. Learned, so life experience built onto our genetic code. Basically, we add to our arousal template through things like classical conditioning and salient experiences. Learned elements of our arousal template tend to seep in even without our knowing it. Cultural, so environmental influences, including family messages about sex, early sexual experiences, maybe seeing something, watching your neighbor dressing in the window, or experiencing magazines or TV or movies, seeing pornography as a young person, gender messages, fashion trends when you were growing up. All of these kind of things will find their way into your arousal template. Then elements of a person's arousal template can be very varied, and they can include things like physical characteristics, hair color, eye color, race, height, weight, emotional characteristics, somebody being kind or controlling or needy, places, shopping centers, hotels, processes like smoking, dancing, objects, computers, keyboards, sexy billboards, high heels, sounds, a ringtone or a text alert or a message, visuals, an attractive person on the street, behaviors, dressing provocatively, being ignored. All of these kind of things, believe it or not, fit into your arousal template. Something else that's very interesting and is also clear to us is that as we age, elements can be added to our arousal template. So as we age, as we learn, as we get new experiences, our arousal template develops. What's interesting, though, is they cannot be eliminated. So how about addiction in the arousal template? Because that's kind of key when you talk about sex and porn addiction and how the arousal template changes. So what we know about addiction is that we build a tolerance. So the more we engage in a certain behavior, the more we need to engage in that behavior to get a high. The more we drink, the more we need to drink to get drunk. That's the case with sex and porn addiction. So the more a person watches a certain type of porn, for example, or acts a certain way sexually, the less arousing it becomes. So after a while, they build a tolerance to what they're doing, and the behavior needs to change for them to get aroused. Essentially, the arousal template needs to shift and the behavior starts to escalate. So as I explain to my clients, our arousal template kind of is here. And as we start to saturate our brain with sex hormones and sex chemicals, and as we start to do a certain thing after a while, the arousal template starts to shift or get higher, and it ends up here. It's why porn addicts, for instance, will come into therapy with issues sometimes like erectile dysfunction, because they can't get aroused by perhaps the real life person they're lying next to anymore, because the arousal template has changed so much that they're just not able to get aroused or to get any kind of high from what they would have got previously. Typically, when describing this kind of escalation, porn and sex addicts will use words like rougher, taboo, groups, hardcore, or intense. What this usually means is that the type of porn, for instance, that they're watching becomes riskier, or the type of acting out behavior becomes more dangerous, and so on. They find that they've strayed very far from the original arousal template due to the escalating nature of the addiction. The tricky piece, I guess, is that once you've seen something and you've become aroused by it, you can't unsee it. So part of healthy recovery is learning how to let those images fade and how to start creating new and healthier ones, and to start working on bringing your arousal template down and creating a new and healthier one. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the 10 types of problematic behaviors that are connected to sex and porn addiction, please go to our website at www.newlifepsychology.ca/guide. Or if you're curious as to whether maybe you're a sex or porn addict, check us out at www.amisexaddict.ca.